We need to rehabilitate our feet. Every one of us in the Western world. In the Western world, we are aging decades before we should. 80% instances of back pain throughout your life, and 80% of people will have some sort of foot pain throughout their entire lives. It was Elizabethan England where finally everyone had a horse. And when you owned a horse, you needed to fit in the stirrups, so you would wear a riding boot with a rounded toe box and a raised heel. All of a sudden it became in style to wear heels who were designed to help us not slip out of our stirrup, and rounded toe boxes that were designed to help us fit in our stirrup. And well past the usefulness of horses in transportation, these styles and fashions remained in our footwear. When we walk places, a stiff sole on our shoe binds our arches, our arch muscles, and restricts them from going to their range of motion. A rounded toe box is not designed with the anatomy of the human foot in mind, and it causes plantar fasciitis, bunions, metatarsalalgia, which is swelling of the metatarsals. It causes Morton's neuroma, which is where your metatarsal bones will rub up against each other and inflame a nerve ending. It causes horrific orthopedic damage to your posterior chain, starting from heel spurs, knee bursitis, goes into your low back, causing low back pain and low back spasm. That's the #1 cause of worker absenteeism in the United States. It's low back pain. And this isn't coming from people who are working out in the fields or in the mines in third world countries. This is coming from office workers. So you're seeing the greatest injury rate to your back amongst people who don't do any physical labor. And the reason why is because they wear office appropriate footwear, which office appropriate footwear has a history of injury in the Western world. You need to get into sensible footwear that does not bind your feet. And that means healthy footwear with a flexible, thin sole, a foot-shaped toe box that allows your toes to stay in line with their metatarsals. You can't have a shoe that's going to make your toe on the outside scrunch up like this, because then your foot will conform to that. That's the origin of things like hammer toes. Sometimes I speak to people whose little toes, pinky toe, is permanently like this, and they start to get blistering under here. You need space for your toes to splay out. And you need to get into a shoe that is not putting you off balance. It's not going to put you on a perpetual downward slant like a heeled shoe is. And what that's going to do is it's going to put your center of gravity, if you're on a flat shoe, it's going to put your center of gravity back in your center, the way we evolved. We need to get out of shoes with cushion. Cushion is not good for us. Cushion does not reduce the impact from the ground. Cushion reduces the impact of you sensing impact from the ground. Just like when we go to the dentist's office and we get lidocaine in our teeth, in our gums, and you can no longer feel your gums, you can't start chewing on your lip then, because you will start feeling your lip when the lidocaine wears off, and you will have damage to your lip. And it's the same thing with cushion on shoes. Cushion on shoes says, I can't feel my feet. You have 200,000 nerve endings in the bottom of your feet that weren't put there by mistake. They are there to sense your impact on the ground, and they're there in order to see if you're stepping on something that could be of risk to you. And when you put cushion on the bottom of your shoe, you mute those 200,000 nerve endings, and it allows you to walk recklessly. What do I mean by walk recklessly? When Christopher Columbus and the original European settlers came to the Americas, they noticed something strange amongst the people who already lived here. And what they noticed was that Native Americans would walk on their forefoot, the ball of their foot, while the Europeans would walk heel to toe. The reason why is because all the Europeans had grown up just like we did, wearing stiff-soled shoes with heels, and learning that the way to walk is heel to toe. The problem is that a heel-toe walk doesn't allow your Achilles tendon to absorb shock. It doesn't allow your Achilles tendon to absorb shock. What it does is it has you walk on your heel where the impact from the ground goes into your knees, hips, low back, upper back, neck, and head. And that causes knee replacement, hip replacement, low back pain, upper back pain, neck pain, and headaches. Not to mention ankle fracture, not to mention heel fracture and heel spurs, because no healthy animal walks on his heel. And human beings today, modern day hunter-gatherer society human beings, for example, the Hadza tribe out of northern Tanzania, they are the last remaining Bushmen in Africa. They're a hunter-gatherer society, and looking at them is like looking into a time capsule into the Stone Age. And one thing you'll notice when they walk is that their heels do not touch the ground. When your heel doesn't touch the ground, your Achilles tendon can absorb all of the shock into it and then recycle it for the next step. That is 850 pounds of force that can be absorbed and recycled by the Achilles tendon. What we have to rely on when we stiffen our feet with a cast or a binding instrument with these modern shoes, what we do is that we have to take that impact into cushion, a cushioned heel, where the cushioned heel does not have 850 pounds of force capacity. And so our orthopedic system ends up taking the shock. This year, we all need to strengthen our feet and learn how to walk on our forefoot. And that means you need to get out of the stiff-soled shoes, and you can get into an anatomical shoe if you want, but best is barefoot, where if you go out, you need to go barefoot on rocks, gravel, wood chips, any sort of challenging terrain you can in order to build your muscle and stimulate muscle hypertrophy in your feet, as well as callousing, in order to strengthen your feet, which is the base for your orthopedic system, and learn how to walk on your forefoot with heels not touching the ground. If you do that, which will take a long time, years, but if you don't give up and you do that, then you will be able to squat and use a squat toilet, which requires an incredible amount of mobility and which people in their 90s can use outside of places where there's no manufacturing economies in the third world. You will be able to use a squat toilet into your 90s. Now, how do you go about starting your barefoot journey? You go about your barefoot journey by starting off going barefoot in the house. No shoes in the house. If you can't manage no shoes in the house, then no shoes in the shower. And if you can't stand no shoes in the shower, then sit down in a chair and then practice getting up from a chair with no shoes. Everybody starts from somewhere, and in the Western world, we are all behind. Eventually, you're going to get strong enough that you can go no shoes in the house, no shoes in the driveway, on the concrete. Then maybe no shoes in the park if you're willing to accept a couple stairs, which they're worth it. They're just curious. And then finally, no shoes when you're walking on gravel. Eventually, you'll be able to run barefoot. Not far at first, 60 meters, 100 meters. But over time, you're going to be able to increase this distance to the point where you're running better barefoot than you were with a stiff-soled shoe. Not to mention, your orthopedic pain from running and your orthopedic pain from walking is going to be dissipating because finally you've built a base to your pyramid. So let 2024 be the year that you finally start to rehab your feet. Go barefoot, go minimalist, get into toe socks, buy a rock mat, which is a mat that has rock shapes on it made of plastic that are there to challenge your feet. Get a toe spacer to get space between your toes, and every day, as much as you can, your feet will let you know when they've had enough.